Oh my god. Well. We're about 6 hours removed from WWE Evolution, the first ever all-women's pay-per-view. And did those ladies take what was given to them and absolutely smash it and knock it out of the park? They hit a home run on this one. This is Wrestling Reverb. This episode is going to be very near and dear to me because, as everybody knows who's followed this podcast along, anyone who knows me personally knows how much I appreciate pro wrestling. And I appreciate the women in the business changing the game. Often people ask me, why pro wrestling? Why do you like pro wrestling? Why do you believe in wrestling? Or whatever it may be. I would not even say anything to that. I would literally put this on and show them why I love pro wrestling. Nights, events like this prove to me why I still, after 18 years of watching this, I still love it and I still appreciate it and I still adore it. Every single woman that was on that show, you could see their passion, their drive, how much they wanted to make this the best thing possible. And I can't even... It's going to be a different kind of feel to this episode of Wrestling Reverb, because my take on it is it's hard to put into words exactly what that night meant to the industry and what that night meant to me personally. I'm going to do my best to kind of try to let you in my head on what this means to me. Every single match had its takeaways. Every single match delivered, and everyone was genuinely trying to outdo one another, which is what you want. It's friendly competition. But I think, for me, the biggest takeaway with Evolution is that there's a sense within the girls, every single one of them, every single one, they want to collectively make this show the best possible product. I'm not saying the guys don't, it's just the difference is that the girls have so much more to fight from and to fight against. It's uncommon, quote unquote, for an all-women's pay-per-view, an all-women's event, or, first ever. They were getting all these first evers, so they need to not only put pressure on themselves to deliver and make sure that there's, not only a first ever, that there's a second, a third, a fourth, and it's just, normal. So they've got to also, put pressure on themselves, and there's pressure from the audience to be like, we want this to be amazing. And 99.9% of the time, every single one of those girls not only delivers, but they over-deliver. And I do genuinely mean that. I'm not blowing smoke. I'm not kissing ass. This is just my opinion. Those girls collectively want to make it the best possible product. They want to outshine one another. They want to out-wrestle one another. They believe they are the best. And I am, hands down, in complete and utter shock and awe of how good that event was and how emotionally it got me and how I witnessed a change in the business. We've been talking a lot about, the women's revolution, women's evolution, and how there's been these little steps and stuff like that, Women's Royal Rumbles and Hell in a Cells, Money in the Banks. This is different. This is not a baby step. This is a giant step forward, because the performance that they put on tonight, there's no way the industry can ignore it. There's no way the WWE can ignore it. It just felt like a collective effort to make this amazing. And people may not agree with me. I'm not saying everyone does, but from the general consensus that I see on my internet, my social media feeds, is that Evolution was a success. Evolution was an A-grade quality pay-per-view. I said this on my Twitter and my Facebook. I believe Evolution was the pay-per-view of the year. I still believe that. I haven't rewatched it yet. I've only watched it once through. I'm going to watch it again probably directly after I record this podcast. I'm going to rewatch Evolution. I'm pretty certain that my takeaway will still be the same. It was the perfect blend of past, present, and future. It showed that when a group of men, women, just people, just a group of humans have the same common goal, is that it can create magic. And I truly believe that this was a history-making, game-changing event, and I do believe that I witnessed something very special. The feel and the energy of the show, a lot of people were saying, oh, it looks like a live event, there's no, big whatever, the lighting and stuff. I actually prefer that. So for me, it looked different because the set was different. It's not the same standard set we're used to always seeing now. The set was different. The lighting looked a little bit more, quote unquote, like, lack of a better term, but grungy. It looked like a takeover. I liked the guardrails and stuff like that. It made it feel more inclusive. I think a big part of this as well was the crowd. The crowd were not only respectful, but they were very receptive of absolutely everybody. They were on every move. Every single person got somewhat of a reaction. It was just a lively crowd all night, which I really, really am thankful for. I'm glad that it happened like that. I'm not going to go through, this is not going to be an extra long kind of review show of everything. I'm just giving you my general take on Evolution, but obviously we need to talk about, firstly I'd like to talk about the Mae Young Classic, because it's something that I've been very invested in. I've said this on my social media. I honestly can't remember if I said this on another episode of my podcast, but it's generally a thought, and it's definitely a thing I could have said on my podcast, but I've definitely put it on my Twitter and my Facebook, is that when I watch the Mae Young Classic, I forget that what pro wrestling is. It just makes it feel like a competition, a fight. It makes it feel real. And Tony Storm and Io Shirai went out with the intention that you could tell they were trying to steal the show. I said that I thought it was going to be the show stealer. Maybe it wasn't the show stealing performance, but it definitely was a great match. I loved the finish. Tony Storm with the win. I think Tony Storm is a superstar, and I think she has a very bright future. Io Shirai is just fantastic in the ring. I think she's going to be great for NXT. And then eventual main roster call-up. But I think for NXT, she's going to bring everyone up. We're not saying anyone's bad in NXT, because they're not. But yeah, I think Io's going to be great for that. And I just think Tony is a superstar, and she's got so much charisma. She's fantastic in the ring. They really did have a great match. And that was one that was really close to me, because I've generally watched every single match at the Mae Young Classic, and I've been invested in every single woman in the Mae Young Classic this year. I think the Mae Young Classic exceeded everyone's expectations second go round, and I think it knocked number one out of the park, and I loved number one. I loved Mae Young 1. So that was really special to me. It was fantastic seeing Trish and Lita back in the ring. They had a nice little match with Mickey and Alicia. The stare down between Trish and Mickey only makes me want to see Mickey and Trish again. Trish and Lita are still in fantastic shape. They can still definitely go. I love that they started the show. Another thing that kind of surprised me was how great the Battle Royal was. I'm not going to talk for anyone else, but for me, I was highly critical of a Battle Royal being on this show. I thought it was lazy. But if you're going to do a Battle Royal, 100% you do it like that. I think Ember Moon arrived, and I think Ember Moon showed the world what she's about, and it was very adamant that she was very popular and everyone was ready for her. And I'm honestly kind of glad that she didn't win here, because it only builds up more, and she's going to get more little spots like this. And she could, Ember does definitely have star appeal. I think Ember's a little bit one-dimensional, personally, I don't think, just for me personally, I'm not enamored with her character, but I know some people really are. But no doubt she's very athletic, she's very good in the ring, and obviously she has quite a following. So Ember is one. She had a breakout moment tonight. Nia with the win. Zelina Vega had some good stuff in there. Michelle McCool looked fantastic in there. Ivory. There was the fun stuff with the dancing. Mandy Rose and Sonya Deville cleaned house at the start. It was great seeing my all-time favourite women's wrestler, Molly Holly, in there. There was just so many spots and bits. Tamina looked great in there. I really enjoyed the Battle Royal, which is surprising. And I think that's why I enjoyed it so much, because I went in with no expectation. Also, another side note, it was great to see everyone got entrances, because that was what I was a bit worried about. But everyone got an entrance, everyone got their moment, and it was a fun Battle Royal. We had a lot of past in there, but you look on the flip side of things with the future, the NXT Women's Championship match, Kairi Sane, Shayna Baszler. I went in with the thought in mind that these two are going to kill it, because they did in Brooklyn, and they did in the original Mae Young Classic final. I just generally went in with that kind of mindset. They definitely did. I think a thing to say about Evolution is that you can't really say a lot about WWE pay-per-views anymore, is that there was literally nothing bad on that show. Everything was good to great to amazing. You know what I mean? There was nothing bad on that show. I think a thing with this pay-per-view was, I think it ran a little over 3 hours, maybe nearly 3.5 hours. There was, 7 matches on the card? And that, to me, shows that WWE can produce a pay-per-view with 7 matches, 3.5 hours, everything got time, everything felt amazing, and that WWE shouldn't have to put 12 to 13 matches on a 4-hour show that just feels like a drag. I think Evolution was booked properly. I think it was just, not that I know anything about that kind of stuff. I'm not in it. But just as a fan, it just felt very natural to watch it in the way that it was presented. And I just think that that is something to take note of, because WWE's philosophy is just more, and sometimes they, as the old saying says, less is more. And I think in this case, there were 7 matches, everyone was in them, and they all delivered. So, but anyway, back to Shayna and Kairi. They killed it. I like Shayna going over, first ever 2-time NXT Women's Champion. We're planting the seeds for the 4 Horsewomen all getting together in WWE. Now she's got Jessamine Duke, and I have blanked on the other one's name. Why? You will hammer me on this on social media, but I can't remember their name. Anyway, they helped Kairi Sane lose the NXT Women's title. Kairi is great. I think she's got a fantastic moveset. I didn't like Shayna Baszler at the Mae Young Classic. I didn't think she was very good. 1 year later, she's one of the most legitimate workers in the entire company. NXT, WWE, man, woman, anyone. I think she's one of the most legitimate people that there is. And she's just very, very good. You can tell she understands pro wrestling, which is nice. But yeah, they had a great match. Of course, actually, the 6-woman tag is another one that I was genuinely surprised with how good it was, because a lot of people, when it was announced, was this is just a Raw match. This is just this is nothing. Including a little bit to myself, I was like, oh well, this is just a match that I'd see on Raw or whatever. And I love all 6 ladies in the match a lot. I genuinely think they're all great. So when it was kind of happening, I was like, okay, this is standard 6-person tag stuff. We get some heat, build to a hot tag, we go to our pin. Well, in this case, there was lots of false finishes. There was lots of the Riot Squad working so well as a unit, which is something that not a lot of people would notice, but there was frequent tags, there was double team moves, there was the Riot Squad are becoming a trio, which is something, I don't know, not everyone would pick up on, or not everyone would really care about, even if they did pick up on it. It's just something as as I watch pro wrestling maybe a little bit differently to other people, where I'm studying it more than watching it almost, which is sometimes a blessing in disguise, but in other senses it's horrid because I just nitpick everything. But yeah, they used a lot of double team moves. There was a lot of stuff with Sasha, and I loved the Bayley and Sasha stuff when Bayley crawled on top and took the bullet for her, so to speak. And I thought the finish was great with all the frog splash and the elk. I just thought it was a great match. It was fun. It was fast paced. It had its peaks and valleys of going through all the motions of a tag team match, and I just thought they really knocked that one way out of the park, especially exceeding expectations of what it was. I know I said I wasn't going to do a review show of every single match, but here we are. So let's just keep going with it. I may as well now. Becky and Charlotte was completely opposite of six-woman tag in terms of expectations. Everyone knew this match was going to be amazing, and I think there was a lot of pressure on Becky and Charlotte. But because Becky and Charlotte know each other so well, they've worked together countless amount of times, they are in the hottest storyline in all of WWE at the moment. I said this in my conversation with Levi of the Ruthless Aggression podcast. I'll give them a little shout out there. I said to him, and he actually agreed with me, was it takes two to tango, and everyone's kind of, including myself, going on crazy about Becky because she is, the cool, hip, edgy. She is different, and she's so incredible at the moment, but it definitely takes two to tango, and Charlotte has been playing her role incredibly well, and I think sometimes we get a little bit on Charlotte just because whatever, and people are so enamored with Becky that they just tend to ignore what Charlotte's doing, but Charlotte shows up, delivers on a consistent basis. She is a main event draw, and Becky, without Charlotte, wouldn't be where she is right now, only for the sense of Becky, to make Becky a superstar main event talent like Charlotte, she needed to work with Charlotte, and this has helped. It's helped Becky a lot more than Charlotte, but it hasn't certainly damaged Charlotte. This whole program has been expertly done. It's stayed hot, which is something that in this day and age doesn't happen as much because people's attention spans are so little. But it's definitely been a fantastic rivalry. This match, I think, is probably the greatest women's main roster match ever. I think the only match that I can really sense that, for me, was Sasha Bayley is the only one at TakeOver Brooklyn, is the only one that I think is maybe better. But that last women's standing match was absolutely incredible. There were so many spots, chairs, kendo sticks, announcers tables, normal tables, ladders, so much stuff, and it just put the emphasis on them just wanting to knock each other out and whatever it may be. I think, for me, I hope this is the end of Becky and Charlotte for now, because everyone wants more, and to leave it wanting more, when we revisit it in 6 months, a year, 2 years, whatever it is, it'll be still great to see. That's what I hope for, but what I think will happen is maybe WWE will probably milk another match or two out of it, which is still fine because they'll still kill it. I just don't know if it will stay as hot because I think this is definitely the peak of their rivalry. Me personally thinks that. Not saying that those two girls still can't kill it because they can, definitely. But just for me, I just think they need to move on to other things. I think maybe if we go with Survivor Series being Raw and SmackDown, Raw versus SmackDown, I guess that means Becky Lynch would work with Ronda Rousey. But it's still up in the air whether they're going to do that at Survivor Series. Maybe Becky moves on to Asuka or Naomi or whoever it may be. But this match just, my words will not do it justice of how good it actually was. And I just think that Becky and Charlotte are just two incredible workers, and this program has been one of the best in recent memory. I really do believe that. But it definitely stole the show for the entire night. There's no question in my mind that most people will agree. It was brutal. It was an incredible match. I think it was... If I was to listen to Dave Meltzer, I would hope that he would give it 5 stars, but who knows what will happen then. I don't really take his opinion. I don't know. His opinion is his opinion, so it's just like my opinion is my opinion. Some people won't agree with me, some people will. That's what an opinion is. So, but it definitely deserves that from the masses anyway. So we move into the main event, and a lot of people were unhappy that this was the main event. I was one of those people that said this is the main event. It should be the main event. To me, it's the Roman Reigns, Brock Lesnar. Do you know what I mean? I'm not saying that those people are those people. I'm just saying that in terms of aspect of things, mainstream, legitimacy, just kind of like that. Nikki Bella does have a mainstream audience, and Ronda Rousey has a sporting audience and a mainstream audience on that. You put the two words together, and I explained it in a couple of podcasts ago that I do generally believe that this should go on last, as it did. Now, a lot of people, what I had a problem with was, I didn't have a problem with people, saying their bit and saying it shouldn't, Becky and Charlotte should, or whatever. I didn't have a problem with that because I do see their point. What I had a problem with was people hadn't even seen the match and they're already discrediting it for, this is going to be a bad match and Nikki can't keep up and Ronda's still new and whatever. But to me, that's all BS because you haven't seen the match, so you don't know exactly what it's going to be. Those two before tonight had never touched, they never worked, so you don't know what kind of chemistry they do or do not have. So to me, Ronda and Nikki delivered. They definitely earned their main event spot. They had a great match. There was a lot of great spots in there. The ending was great. Nikki, forced finishes, and Ronda's not afraid to take a bump, which is what I like. Neither is Nikki. Nikki held her own in there too. I always have been a defender of the Bella Twins. I always probably will be. But I think Ronda and Nikki gave the crowd a great main event match of the first ever all-women's pay-per-view. I just think the show as a whole... firstly, I'm glad. I'm not surprised that Ronda won. There was a little part of me definitely that wanted Nikki to win, just to see what everyone would do, because I kind of like going against the grain sometimes and people just complaining and bitching and moaning and being like, I would have liked to see that. But, for the most part of me, I knew that Ronda was going to retain her championship here. It was just another kind of thing. But it showed Ronda can deliver in a main event situation in the WWE. And it showed that Nikki Bella can too. Obviously, Nikki isn't a full-time worker. She's probably going to go away for a little while now, as is Brie. Nikki, obviously, history of neck issues and stuff like that, so she can't wrestle on a full-time schedule. But she'll be back. This is not her last match. It just shows that Nikki Bella can deliver, and so can Ronda. So that's a good thing. I take all of it as a positive. The whole night I take as a positive. I think it was truly something I'll never forget. I said this, I don't even know where I said this. It may have been on Twitter or on my Instagram or something. Or could have been on a past episode of the podcast. Behind the Super Showdown, I honestly think this was the biggest day of my pro wrestling fandom. I generally do think that, and watching it, I still state that. The only reason the Super Showdown was just because it was the first time I've ever been in a stadium like that watching a pay-per-view, and that will be something that I'll never forget. This has a different feeling, but this is something I'll truly never forget because I did generally witness something special and something historic, and there's never ever a first ever again. So to say that during my tenure of watching wrestling, I don't plan on, tapping out of wrestling anytime ever. Really, I think I'll be a fan for life. So I'd like to think in 10, 15 years, we look back on this and being like, this was the first ever time it happened. And now here we are at the 15th annual, the 20th annual. You know what I mean? I hope this is something every year because I think, we talk about the women's division, women's wrestling. I think the next step of the women's evolution or evolution, whatever you want to call it, is I just want it to become wrestling. I don't want it to be women's wrestling, if you know what I mean. Like, I love, stating that I love the women and stuff like that, but I just want it to be all together, all inclusive, all just as one. And I think I'm excited to say, I'm excited for it to be, we're calling it the first ever all-women's pay-per-view. I'm excited for the first ever all-women's part to go away, and it's just a pay-per-view, and it's just normal. And I think that's the next step of this. This is great, and I love, stating that it's the first ever, and it's very historic to say that, and, first ever Women's Royal Rumble, but next year it's just the 30-woman Royal Rumble match. It just becomes a part of the flow, and becomes a part of the grain, and becomes a part of the system. I think that's the next step in the women's evolution. It just becomes normal. And, if you said to me, if you had a conversation with me, even 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and said, on October 28th in 2018, there's going to be an all-women's pay-per-view, I probably would have said, no, there isn't, and you can take that away as much as I would hope for it. I just didn't think it would happen. I'm not saying that the girls couldn't, I just didn't think it was a plausible thing to think about then. And now we're looking at this, and it's not a question of can they do it. It's now a question of when can they do it again, because they really did something special tonight. It's a very nice thing to watch, and I just loved every minute of it. And I didn't want it to end, so that's a good thing. It left me wanting more. As we head towards, the end of the year, we're going up to the Rumble. We're in Mania season again before you know it. And, maybe I say the big picture is taking away the first ever and stuff like that. I think the last real first ever big deal is the first ever WrestleMania main event for women. And I think once they knock that off the list, I think it is then what I said before, that the step is taking away the first ever bit, taking away the women's bit, and it's just wrestling. It's just WWE. There's no, label on everyone. It's just all inclusive. It's all together, and that's what I think I want. Nonetheless, I think this show was grade A. Just my personal opinion is the pay-per-view of the year, and I think we had one of the best matches of the year with Charlotte and Becky. And I just think a lot of people arrived, and I think as a whole they all arrived. And I honestly wasn't going to bring this up because it's such a damper on everything else, but I have my opinion on Crown Jewel, and I've stated that, and I've also stated that I'm still going to watch Crown Jewel because it's still a wrestling event, and I'm just going to take it for the wrestling and not for all the other stuff that's going on. But I honestly didn't think it was a great idea to promote Crown Jewel during Evolution, only because of the circumstances that are around Crown Jewel. And I think it got a well-deserved boo when it came on the screen. And I think WWE should have been a little bit more sensitive with that kind of stuff. But nonetheless, it's an event. It's still happening. We are not going to change that. And the best thing for us to do now is to maybe, say our bit that we don't really appreciate morally where they're going, but it's still happening, and we're still going to, for the majority of us, are still going to watch Crown Jewel. There's a lot of stuff happening at Crown Jewel, and I think we just need to get to, well, it's Saturday here, but Friday, get it past it and move on to the next, because it's 3 weeks out from Survivor Series. WWE cramming a lot of events back to back to back to back to back, and it's just getting a little bit much. But we're 3 weeks out from Survivor Series. They're not going to do much building to Survivor Series this week. It's all going to be about Crown Jewel. So really, we've got 2 weeks of a build to one of the big four pay-per-views. It's going to be interesting to see what they do because we all know the build up until the last few days with all the stuff that they've been putting on social media and, you know, YouTube and going into radios and that. There was they're not the greatest build for Evolution, but the ladies took that and showed everybody that whatever is given to them, they will deliver and they'll over-deliver. And I truly think it was magic. I think it was magic. And I just love pro wrestling, and I just love I just love every bit of it. Everything. I take the good with the bad, and I just love pro wrestling. And I can, you know, it's easy to be passionate about something and to, you know, watch it for what it is, but to actually, almost to a sense, I think, you know, a lot of casual people won't understand what I'm saying, but to those of people that watch wrestling like I do, you almost kind of live it in a weird way. You live vicariously through all these people, and I just think that my first love will always be pro wrestling, no matter what person or whatever comes into my life. It'll always be, you know, very high up there for me, and it'll always be my number one kind of thing. And it's moments like this why I still say that I love it, and why I'm not at all ashamed to like pro wrestling and to tell people I like pro wrestling and to show people pro wrestling. It's because of stuff like this, and it's just special to watch. I really did feel that we witnessed a big milestone in wrestling, in the industry. And WWE have their ways, and they have their you know, different things that they do, and they have some questionable decisions. But when they produce something good, it really is good. And a lot of time people aren't going to admit that because they like to go against the thing and be like, F the system and whatever it may be. But when WWE deliver, they really do deliver. And I just think there's an incredible group of talent right now. And the girls just blew me away. And I just personally, not that any of these girls are listening to this, not that anyone in the WWE is listening to this, thank you for allowing us to demand change, and thank you for listening to us demanding change. And thank you for allowing us to be a part of that, because I feel like in the smallest little part, we all helped the women's evolution, and we all helped evolution happen in a weird way. We are all a part of this. We all wanted this, and it's only upwards from here for all of them. For the whole WWE, I always want the best. The industry is fun, and it's times like this when you really do appreciate the fun. I'm gonna end it on that because I'm trying not to sound so emotional and trying to sound not so sentimental, but it's just sometimes you got to be like this. Sometimes this is just how it is, and I just appreciate wrestling. And anyone who wants to, you know, say what they will about this industry and this business, but it's days like this where it's a great time. So I'll catch you guys next time on Wrestling Reverb, and bye.